And at the end of the exercise, she didn't say a word. She was like, "You quit yesterday, didn't you?" And I was like,
no.
"Yeah." She was like, "I can tell, because you weren't thinking about anything. You were just being in the moment. That was the best acting you've ever done."
What is character?
Character. I think character is what you build as you grow, and it's part of your personality. I think that's you become a character as you have life experiences, and also as an actor you can choose to become another character by stepping in another parts of yourself which you haven't explored yet.
Right, because we have so many parts, whether they're hidden or we wear sort of a mask in public.
Absolutely. Right? And like we're never the same person. Like you're never the same person you are with your parents or with your husband or with, at an interview. Like you have so many different layers of yourself. So I think character is building those layers.
As an actor, how do you determine whether a character has complexity?
On the script. It's all about the script. If it's a good script writing, I can spot it right away. And if it's just like a sloppy screenwriter, that's the character that I'm not as interested in playing.
Okay, so if you did have a quote sloppy screenwriter, is there a way you can, if the director allows you, can you shape the character a little more? Can you form it as if you were a sculptor?
It depends on the character, it depends on the writer and the director. Because I know, for example, many writers, they don't want the script to be changed at all. And some other writers, they don't mind. And some directors, they're the same. Some directors, they just want you to do the scene exactly the way they thought. And some directors, they want to collaborate. They want to hear your thoughts. So it depends on the person.
Right. And so do you ever, is that something where, since you seem like you're very intuitive, you can sense that, I can maybe, over here, is it all right if I do it this way? Or whereas other ones probably don't bring it up?
You kind of know right away when you start, because usually you have a first reading of the script with the director and you read the script and he would ask you for notes or not. So that's when you can spot it. It was like, okay, if he's asking questions, what do you think about your character? Do you think this scene makes sense? And then you say yes or no, and that's, you understand, okay, this is a director, he wants to collaborate, But if they're very, they're more square in a way, then there's not much you can do.
Right, and you have to just kind of go with it, even if maybe the writing is vague or
yes,
sloppy, as you said. As someone who's writing and directing their own projects, how has your view of character changed?
I've found that I've become more interested in characters that they already exist, and they have fantastic stories to tell. For example, I want to do a short film in Italy next. And this is based off my father's best friend who lives in Italy, who told me a story that happened to him. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is a movie. We have to put it on screen. So again, I feel like meeting so many people from different parts of the world, different cultures, I have so much curiosity for them. How do you react to a situation? Because the way an Italian reacts is not the same an American or a Colombian reacts. So that fascinates me.
Sure. Yeah, and plus too, growing up around these marionettes in the theater, it's an inanimate object that's coming to life.
Yes.
And so you probably, and I know you were sort of your own puppet, and like you said, which is so great. But, giving each one of these wooden dolls or whatever they're made out of life and mannerisms.
Absolutely, and I remember that because I had my first sister when I was 17 after my father remarried. So my first sister, my second one, they live in Italy. So I didn't grow up with siblings, but I grew up with many marionettes. So my father and my mother used to like, these are your siblings, And that's kind of the relationship that I had. They were part of me, part of my growing up.
Wow, that's so cool. I would love to see a movie about that, yeah. As an actor, do you always have a goal or an objective in every scene?
You should, yes, absolutely. That's one of the first things that they teach us. Like you should know where you come from and where you're going and what do you want. Because usually when you're in a movie, even in real life, there is always a wanting for more or for something. You have an objective. So you have to be clear what you want in a scene. And I think once that is clear, that's where the performances are great because you know where you're going. Instead, if you don't know who you are, where you come from, where you're going, then you're going to struggle as an actor.
Yeah, and that goes back to sort of what you were talking about with I Am Migration, owning and knowing, like, I am who I am, but putting it now into whatever role, which may not be about someone's ethnicity, but just the place in life that they are.
Exactly.
As an actor and a writer, what steps do you take to make a character better?
Again, research. I think is always research is my first step, like trying to understand this person. And then also, if this person is a fictional character, trying to have a backstory. Again, where were they born? Which is something I learned with acting, and now I'm planning to screenwrite it too. And as an actor, you always, even if you get a script and is a one page or is a one scene and they don't give you anything else, it's your job to create a backstory for this character. Where was I born? How many siblings I have? Where do I come from? What was my life like until this point? So that's very key, kind of to create this backdrop for each character you write.
And when you're asked to play a character where the script's already there, do you come up with your own sort of mini bio? Maybe you don't even tell the director.
Yeah, I usually ask the director first. I was like, okay, where do you think this character is from? Like, what do you think? Like, I ask the director first, so he can give me an idea of a base. And depending on that, I start to add in all the spots.
How many acting techniques or styles have you studied?
I studied in Colombia first for a couple of years. It was very theatrical. And then when I moved to New York, I studied with Jutta Hagen, HB Studios. Then I also did 6 months with Stella Adler. And then when I moved to Montreal, I did Meisner technique, which it's been my favorite so far, because Meisner is all about the other person who you're acting. So you really have to listen to the other person. It's not about you. And I think that's what I love Meisner so much, because it's unless you're doing a monologue, but if not, it's a collaboration. And I think that's it. I'm all about collaboration. So I think Meisner has been my favorite. They all come from method acting. And then after that, I studied with Stephanie Feury, which she has a method acting studio in LA, which I always love. So I think method acting, I've always been drawn to it. There is different levels of methods, so I'm not that person who is all the time that Kara goes on set, please don't talk to me and call me by, no. Like, I know I'm a method actress. When I'm in the scene, as soon as they say cut, I can go back and be myself. And I think for me, it's the healthiest way to approach acting.
Do you stay in acting classes even when you're not going on auditions?
Yes, I do. I try, and now with 2 kids it's a little bit harder, but before, when I wasn't working, I always go back to the acting studio, yes.
What technique works best for you?
Meisner. Meisner is a technique that works best for me, again, because it's about listening to the other partner and do a collaboration with that person. And I think it's very important, and again, with my work about empathy and humanity, you really have to tune in, and it's not about you. And I think that's the best actors are the ones that they don't make them about themselves, but about what's happening outside.
And is that where you're sort of facing someone doing these techniques where you're like saying a word?
You repeat it over and over.
That comes
Yes,
to you. Okay,
exactly.
right.
That's Meisner. So the technique is like you repeat so much that word loses its meaning and it becomes something else. Because usually in acting, it's not about the text, but about the subtext that you're talking about. So that's why that technique is so powerful, because it makes you really tune in of like, it's not about the words, but the intention that you're sending and that you're receiving.
Right. Interesting. The little inflections or what's not even being said.
Exactly.
Right. Interesting. With the Meisner technique, how quickly can you apply that? If that makes sense.
You can do it. Well, it depends. If the other actor you're working, he's done Meisner technique, then it's easy because you're both kind of on the same path. You can even start rehearsing. I had someone I quickly taught them Meisner technique before a scene, so we did a repetition for them to kind of warm up, and that worked really beautiful. But if not, I think as any other method is very personal. I feel like you go as much as you can, you know your script, you know your lines, and you go and you give the best. It's hard to kind of share your techniques when you're working, unless the other person is open to it.
Sure, so you're kind of your own island.
Yes.
Interacting.
In terms of techniques, yes, because I've worked with non-actors. I've worked with people who've never acted before, So it's like, okay, so you just gotta be honest and present and real for them and just open, but you're not the director, so you can't really, you can guide them as much as you can, but it's not your job to teach them.
Right, and you mentioned Uta Hagen earlier, and I've watched some old videos with her. Fascinating lady, would be in the back eating and smoking
Yes.
and kind of no filter, would just tell you exactly what she thought.
Yes, and those directors, I had Jacqueline McClintock, she was my Meisner teacher, and here Stephanie Feury. And I love them because they tell it as it is. There is no sugarcoating. There is no, and I've always preferred those kind of teachers than the ones that are too nice. Or they're like, oh, that's perfect. It's like, no, I want to be told when I'm wrong. So that's the only way I can improve.
Right. And does that come with time? We in the beginning? Well, since you grew up, though, let me backtrack. Sorry, because you grew up with such a theatrical background, then it sounds like, you know, that worked. But I wonder, do you see sometimes people, they are squeamish to that at first?
Yeah, people have walked away. People have left the studio because of that. I have many times where our teacher would be like, are you sure you want to be an actor? Why do you want to be an actor? Just tell me. And the people had a breakdown, be like, oh, yes, I guess I don't really want to be an actor. And they just walk away.
Right. I'd witnessed people doing the Meisner technique, and maybe a word was said and a subtext was said, and then things escalated. I saw that, and that was maybe too much, especially, you know, someone might have had feelings for someone, or someone might have not liked somebody. So I saw that. I didn't necessarily see because of the teacher. But yeah, that was a lot to watch as well.
No, Meisner, it's very powerful. It's very frustrating because the first months, it takes a while to get to that point where you're so yourself that you don't care about anything else, and that's a good performance when you don't think about what other people are thinking about you. You know, it takes to hone that technique, it takes months. And like even me after years, sometimes I would struggle, you know. And I remember I had this Meisner technique in Palma de Mallorca with my teacher, and we were there for a month. And she was being really hard on me. Like one day she was being really hard. She's like, no, you're not being honest. No, this is fake. Da, da, da. And I had a moment, I went home, I cried. And I went back the other day thinking like, this is it, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore, it's too hard. And I went back the other day and did an exercise. And at the end of the exercise, she didn't say a word. She was like, you quit yesterday, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. She was like, I can tell, because you weren't thinking about anything. You were just being in the moment. That was the best acting you've ever done.
Wow. And this was in front of the class?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it kind of takes that in some sense to, you know, really own again the performance, owning who you are and then owning the performance.
Exactly, yeah.
Where does your emotion as an actress come from?
Where did my emotion come from? Being a method actress, I think a lot relies in being true to myself and true to what I would do in these circumstances, you know, because as Meisner says, acting is living truthfully under the imaginary circumstances. And I always take that sentence with me everywhere I go, you know, like living truthfully, being yourself. And I think that's where my emotion, when you're very true to yourself, that's when the emotions flow. When you're not true to yourself, it's when you start to trying to grab the emotion and trying to manipulate and move it around, and that doesn't always comes across as a, you know, as a good performance.